Hello, everyone. Welcome to class. This is Professor Bob, and let's get started. Now, before we get started, just a little bit of a touch base where everyone's at. All of you are kind of, neck deep into doing your exercises, which is great. So keep doing that. The exercises that I've given you, or the labs I've been giving you, I call it one or the other. They're really the same things, or assignments, or whatever. Have been on the difficulty level, haven't been that difficult. They've been about a 7 out of 10, so they've been somewhat challenging, but not really like impossible. But they have been time consuming though. If you've noticed, especially with the constraints business, when you're putting constraints on tables, the order that you do things matters. I mean, you have to make sure that you're dropping and creating really, in the correct order. And also things such as, when you're putting on foreign key constraints, you have to make sure that the table that is being referenced is there first before the table that's not being referenced. So this is just regular common drama for actually doing database design, and is really to be expected. I mean, it's basically, that's how it works when you're doing the design of a database. So if you're experiencing that, you're kind of right where everyone else is. Also, you're finding out that there's more than one way to do things. There's more than one way to define a primary key, foreign key. You could do it with an alter command if you wanted to add a key after tables are created. So you're kind of finding these things out on your own, which is very encouraging. That means that you're getting beyond the initial sort of, how do I do it? And you're getting to the point where I know how to do it, but wait, there's other ways to do it too. And ding, 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 there is. So if you're finding these things out, you are walking definitely down the right path. So anyway, like I said, they haven't been that difficult, but they've been extremely realistic. These exercises and the assignments that you've been given so far are fairly realistic. They're not little toy things to do. I don't like giving those out. I don't like giving out, assignments that are hard just for the sake of being hard. That drives me crazy. When, someone would give me, when I was in school, someone would give me an assignment and it just would be difficult just to be difficult, and my professor would say, well, you should be able to figure this one out. Or, it was a female doing the female voice impersonation. And I always would think to myself, I'm like, yeah, but I'm not really learning anything. I mean, that's almost like if I was teaching you Spanish or Latin, or let's pick a language, and I just intentionally used big words. And I would say, well, you should be expected to use these things. Well, yes and no. I mean, it's not a good way to learn it. So there is some method to my madness where I give you assignments. I try to make them believable, like things that you would really do. And I try to make them achievable, things that you will be able to figure out. So that's my job for you guys, is not to give you, I don't want to say too easy or too hard, because that opens up a can of worms and that's open up for more discussion. But I would like to say believable and achievable, meaning that you should be able to do it, and it is realistic. It's something that you would be able to do. Again, if we're doing languages and I was teaching you, I'll pick a language that I don't speak, like Japanese. If I was teaching you Japanese, I probably would start with some basics and some conversations. Like, this is what you would do if you were in an airport or a hotel, and I would give you a believable and achievable conversation and say, you should be able to figure this one out. And I'll leave the hard stuff for later, because that's going to really kind of be up to, what are you going to be pursuing in database design and development? Are you going to be doing more SQL? Which is DML, data manipulation language, or DDL, data definition language, which is a lot of the stuff that you've been doing with dropping and creating tables. So then I would just make one of those, a little bit more difficult. But anyway, I just wanted to give you a little bit of a background on the assignments that I give you. Also, I want to point out the assignments that I give you are very transferable, say that 10 times fast, to other database management systems. For example, you're not going to go into Oracle. You're going to be doing SQL Server, MySQL. Notice I'm mentioning just the enterprise database management systems, the big ones, the big guys, not necessarily the small little toy ones like Access or something, although you could do this with Access too. Anyway, I'm getting a little sidetracked. So yeah, these assignments are fairly more than fairly transportable to any other database management system. The syntax would change a little bit. It would. But you still use the same vernacular. You still use primary key, foreign key, check constraint, DML, DDL. All of that vocabulary that you've been learning is not necessarily Oracle specific. Some a little bit. I mean, this is a class in Oracle. But I try to be as, what's the word I'm looking for, as agnostic as possible as far as this goes. So you're doing great as far as looking at that stuff. So we're going to turn a corner at this point in time here, where up to now you've been doing a lot of things on building out a data model. You've been building a database from scratch. It's a simple database, but it's not too simple. You got multiple tables. You got tables with constraints in them. That's an accomplishment. That is, especially since you've been at this 6 weeks or so. That's really an accomplishment. So congrats. I mean, that's not something simple that you would expect someone just to learn in a month or 3 weeks or so, and not in the detail that you've been doing it. But you guys have been pulling it off. So good for you. I think a lot of it has to do with there's only a few of us here. So it goes a little bit quicker. And plus you have a professor that's here to look at your stuff too. That kind of helps. So we're going to turn the corner more into database programming. You're like, well, we're programming now, aren't we? Well, no, not really. Right now what you're doing is, you're writing code, definitely writing database code, but you're writing code to build something, right? You're writing code to build tables and constraints and some SQL statements, right, to put data into the table. So we're going to turn the corner and do a little bit more of programming. We're going to start with database functions. Now, functions in Oracle or in databases work like functions that work in any other language that you'll be using, but you're going to be using PL SQL, which you already know, to write, or you're starting to know, that's what this class is in, to write some database functions. Now, a database function, the abstract is it works pretty much the same way as a function does in any other language. A function does something. For example, if you have a routine in a language that computes arrays or we'll use compute arrays, and your arrays is dependent on how long you've been with the company and your skill level, whatever. So you might have a routine that computes what your array should be. Now, in any language, including database languages, you can take that logic and put it in the code and put that code all in one callable unit, and it's called a function, where you could just call the function, you can name it f compute raise, and then you could just call it, and then it has all of the functionality in there. Now, functions have things that you pass into it, which are called arguments, sometimes parameters. There's a little bit of a difference, but don't worry about that now. And they usually return a value. They return a value, in this case, what the raise percentage would be. So we're going to change it up a little bit. So starting now, we're kind of done with the let's build a data model, because you know how to build one, and you know how to build a realistic one too. This isn't, I've said this 1,000 times, just get over it, Bob. So we're going to get into the point where you're going to be writing reusable code. We're going to start with functions, and then we're going to add some other database objects called procedures and triggers, which are going to take a little bit longer to do. Functions is going to be fairly simple. You should be able to get through this with fairly little difficulty. It's going to be kind of along the lines of what you've done with up to this point, where it's just going to be getting it to compile and getting it to work. Almost done here. One thing I want to point out, if you get to the point where this stuff is driving you crazy, okay, now remember this, reaching out for help is not a weakness. Well, let me take that back. I'll be realistic. It is a weakness if you're reaching out for help every 10 minutes. And if you're reaching out every hour for help without doing research on what your problem is, that's probably borderline. But if you feel, and again, I'm not going to call you out on this, it's up to you. If you feel that you've taken this as far as you can and you pretty much understand it, and you're pretty sure that the error that you're seeing while you're compiling it is something really ticky-tack, and you know what? If I wake up tomorrow and I look at it again, I'm gonna figure it out. You reach out to me. Give me your code. I'm not gonna punish you for that. I will look at it, and if I do think that maybe you haven't done your research, I'll lead you in the right direction without really giving you the answer. But if it's at the point where it's obvious that you've been working on this and it's something simple, like a space somewhere or something really, I'll use a term dumb, something, not you're dumb, but I mean, it's just something that you look at that's very achievable that's just been missed. Let me see it, and I can take a look. If I can save you a few hours of this stuff, and you've been doing your work, I'll be glad to do that. That's what happens in real life too. You'll go to the person next to you, and you're like, hey, listen, Bob, can I borrow your eyes for a second? Can you just look at this? This has been driving me crazy all morning. And I'll walk over, and I'm like, yeah, I can see why. Yeah, you missed that semicolon right there. You're like, oh man, I knew that was something dumb like that. So don't beat yourself up over this. Remember, when you're frustrated, you're not learning. When you're challenged, you're learning. But when you're frustrated, you're not. When you're frustrated with something, you kind of go into survival panic mode that you'll do anything just to get this effing thing to work. We're all there, and then you're just like, the second this works, I'm just going to shut down my brain, and I'm going to say, yeah, darn it, I got it working, and I'm going to give it to Bob, and I'm moving on to it. I don't want to get you there. I don't want you to get to that point. I want you to at least get some healthy level of frustration, if that's a possibility. I think you guys know what I'm talking about. Because if you're frustrated a little bit, it's learning. That means you're getting outside your brain a little bit, and you're seeing some things that are unfamiliar. And that's scary, because we don't trust things that aren't familiar to us. So if we don't trust things that aren't familiar to us, we stop learning a little bit, and we start looking for a little bit of, what's the word I'm looking for? I got to put this politically correctly. A little bit of misery loves company. Where, yeah, you know what, I don't get it, but no one else gets this either, so it's not our fault. Well, you might be right, but I don't want to get you to that point. I want to keep you moving forward. Anyway, I said too much, but I don't get to see you guys a lot. Actually, not at all. This is well, you know what I mean. Anyway, that's all I got for you. Sorry I'm a little scattered today. You guys are doing great. You really are. Keep on working. Reach out for help. If you need to, I am here. The best way to get me is to send me an email. If it's not an emergency, I could get to it within a few hours or by the end of the day, and take a break on this stuff. If it's getting crazy, just take a break and then get back to it tomorrow. Remember that the due dates aren't written in stone. If you need some time for sanity or for learning or to handle other life's things, please do that. I don't want to be a list of things to do for you. I want this to, if possible, be something that you enjoy doing. I mean, let's face it, it's not like, this is going to be something that you look at and you're like, yeah, I get to wake up and do all this every day. I don't know, maybe it will be, but if you get frustrated with it, allow yourself a time to kind of to regroup. Allow yourself that. It's okay. You don't gotta let me know on Sunday that your cat died. Hope your cat doesn't die, or your PC crashed. Just take some extra time. All right, folks. A couple more things. We're getting close to your midterm exam. More on that later. It's going to be we're not going to take any class time to do it, meaning that we're not going to really have a week off, if that's possible. We're going to continue, and we're just going to kind of weave the midterm in. It's going to be on your own time. You get to take it wherever you are. You do have to promise me, though, that you're not going to plagiarize. We're all adults here, so your word should be good enough, right? We're not kids anymore. So you're going to be able to do it on your own without any supervision. And that's coming up. I got to look at the date, but we'll see what that is. Also, the last half of the semester, which we're kind of coming up on, believe it or not, in a few weeks, is going to be a little bit different than the first half. The first half was kind of put your head down and crank this stuff out and maybe go through a little bit of pain and get used to compiling this code. The last half is going to be a little bit more on design. Are you going to be writing code? Well, of course you're going to be writing code. This is a Professor Bob class. That's how you learn, by writing code. Not by having code explained to you, by writing it. That's how you learn, right? It's like learning a language or learning how to play an instrument. I can't explain to you how to play piano. I can't explain to you how to speak Japanese. I can't explain to you how to write databases. You need to do it. I just need to moderate. But it's going to be more on design issues. Like, for example, putting together data models and deploying them in the cloud. We're going to be doing some stuff with virtual machines to spin up virtual environments that you can deploy databases on. So it's going to be more tactical. You know what I'm saying? Like the first half of the semester was strategic, more like this is how you build something. The last half is going to be more tactical. Like, if you're working for Bob's Bell Bottoms and Beta and I say, hey, build me this database, after a few meetings and I want you to deploy it. And you're like, holy crap, how do I do that? I'm going to show you. I'm like, this is how we could build out a machine virtually too, without actually going to Best Buy and buying anything. I mean, just going to like Azure or Google Cloud or AWS, Amazon Web Services, and spinning up virtual machines and deploying Oracle databases on them. And hopefully with that knowledge, you're like, if I could do this with Oracle, I could probably do this with SQL Server or any database. And, ding, 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 that's the point. Anyway, thank you for making it this far. Thank you for listening. Dig into your assignments and your viewing. And I bid you all a very well rest of the day. Thank you. Bye-bye.